Hello, this is Max. Today's story is about a rich millionaire who forced people to do crazy things for money, including with his own wife. You can subscribe to the channel after watching. It helps us a lot in realizing the content. Craig Daniels works as an auto mechanic for a car firm, but is laid off due to downsizing. Feeling defeated, he lies to his wife Audrey about going out to drink with his friend instead of returning home with the bad news. At the bar, he encounters his high school friend, Vince, who recognizes him after 5 years. Vince, seemingly more affluent, notices that Craig has a family now and inquires about his riding. Craig admits that he is still riding, but it's clear that his dreams have been overshadowed by the harsh realities of life. Vince introduces Craig to a woman he's been observing in a rather suspicious manner. He makes cryptic comments about Craig's job and implies that there might be a darker side to it involving violence. As they talk, Craig opens up to Vince about his family's dire situation, with an eviction notice and unemployment hanging over his head. It is then that Vince shockingly reveals his involvement in a heinous act, which he committed with another person against a father in front of his own daughter, all for a mere $80. This revelation leaves Craig shocked and disturbed. After realizing he couldn't handle the man's work at the bar, Craig heads to the restroom, where he finds a well-dressed man sneezing. On his way back, he discovers a paper bill in the toilet, left behind by the affluent man. Back at the bar, Vince is now sitting with the woman he's been eyeing, and the well-dressed man from the restroom joins them. Vince explains that the strangers, Colin and Violet, are looking for some company and offer to buy them drinks. Colin orders a bottle of tequila, introduces himself and Violet, who is celebrating her birthday. Vince informs Colin that he and Craig are old friends catching up, prompting Colin to suggest taking a photo to commemorate the reunion. The couple then enlightens Craig and Vince about their playful betting game involving the man at the bar. Violet wins if he checks out the bartender's bottom, while Colin wins if he checks out her chest. After the man glances at the bartender's bottom, Violet wins, and Colin hands her $100 as a prize. Colin proposes another game in which whoever takes the first shot of tequila wins $50. Vince quickly drinks the shot, but Colin insists he keeps the money and play by the rules. For the next shot, Craig wins the prize. They continue the night with a few more wagers, including a $200 prize for getting a woman to slap their face. Craig tries first, but fails, and when it's Vince's turn, the woman hits him, winning the prize. Colin brings out some substances to sniff on their table, despite Craig's concerns. The wealthy man brushes off the worry and pays the bartender to let them do as they please. Later that night, Vince takes them to a club as Colin asks where they can go next, setting the stage for a night filled with more questionable adventures. Meanwhile, Craig notifies them that they need to head home, but Vince convinces him to stay. Colin further entices them by saying leaving would upset Violet, as it's her birthday party at the club. They grow tired, though, due to club rules that forbid them from interacting physically with the escorts. Colin decides to stir things up by offering $200 to anyone willing to spank an escort. Vince takes up the offer, causing the group to hurriedly leave the club. Outside, Craig is reluctant to join the group in their vehicle and opts to head home instead. However, a bouncer approaches him, accusing Craig of being the one who spanked one of their women. Despite Craig's protests, the bouncer doesn't believe him. For a $500 wager from Colin, Craig punches the bouncer but gets knocked out in return. Upon waking up at Colin's place with $500 in his wallet, Craig finds the rest of the group enjoying themselves. Colin receives a message from Violet, who's sitting in the same room. He asks Vince to help him retrieve some painkillers from his room, leaving Craig alone with Violet, who offers to treat his wounds. Inside Colin's office, Vince spots a large amount of money in Colin's safe. Once they return and Violet finishes treating Craig's wound, Vince whispers something to Colin. This prompts Colin to invite them outside for a view of the city lights. Meanwhile, Vince mischievously urinates on Craig, explaining it's part of a $300 challenge. Vince reveals to Craig his plan to steal Colin's money from the office. Craig hesitates, but Vince reminds him of his current financial troubles and assures him Colin won't report the theft because he's high. Vince instructs Craig to keep Violet distracted while he carries out the theft. However, when they threaten Colin for the code to his safe, he reveals it's already open. As Craig retrieves the money, he notices a photo of Colin as a martial arts champion. Colin disarms Vince and calms the situation by revealing their plans to give Violet an exciting birthday party. He explains that the $250 they found was actually meant for them, but they need to earn it by complying with the couple's commands. Vince and Craig agree to the arrangement. For the first challenge, Colin offers $500 to the one who can hold their breath the longest. During this, Craig gets a call from his wife, who knows he lost his job. Colin persuades Craig to end the call for $300, which he does. When Vince breaks Craig's concentration during his turn, Craig protests, but Colin awards the prize money to Vince anyway, claiming there were no rules. For the next challenge, Colin tasks them with defecating in his neighbor's house for $1,200. Craig goes through with it, ignoring Vince's reminder about the legal consequences. Despite being discovered by a little girl, Craig manages to complete the task and returns to Colin with photographic evidence. Vince, however, opts for a different approach. He finds a puppy outside the neighbor's house and proposes they kill it, eliminating the root cause of the issue. But Colin and Violet object to the idea of hurting a puppy. A confrontation between Vince and Craig ensues, during which Violet snaps a photo. Despite the dispute, Colin awards Craig his prize. For the final challenge, Colin asks them to concoct a metallic vodka for $300. Vince, out of spite, pushes Craig and goes on to fulfill Colin's request. Meanwhile, Violet offers to make love to Craig to help him feel better, leaving both friends utterly shocked. Concurrently, Colin surprisingly offers Craig $4,500 to sleep with his wife, having noticed the eviction notice in Craig's wallet when he was rewarding him earlier for hitting the bouncer. With his dire financial situation in mind, Craig agrees to the challenge, much to Vince's surprise. Colin watches contently as Craig proceeds with the challenge. Afterwards, as the couple get dressed again and Craig counts his newfound earnings, Craig announces that he's leaving now that he has the rent money. Vince expresses his relief and allows Craig to depart. When the couple reappears fully dressed, they find Craig missing. Despite Vince's explanation of Craig's departure, Violet heads outside to find him, but without success. Vince, still present, tries to persuade the couple to continue with their games, but they seem less interested. Colin expresses regret over breaking up the group. However, seeing Vince's insistence, Colin offers a new challenge: cut off his pinky for $25,000. As Vince agrees to this, Craig reappears and proposes to do it for $23,000. Faced with questions about his sudden return, Craig points out that the money he won earlier will only cover their immediate eviction notice. Since he and his wife are still unemployed, they need to find a means to pay future rent. Given the high-risk challenges he's been taking, Vince argues that he too is in need of the money. However, Craig argues that Vince's current circumstances are his own fault, given his decision to drop out of high school. In response, an enraged Vince counters with a bid of $22,000 to undertake the finger-chopping challenge. The two friends engage in a bidding war, ultimately with Craig offering to lose a finger for a surprisingly low sum of $15,000. Baffled by Craig's audacity, Vince questions if he's sure about the risky act for such a small amount. Craig assures him that it's not a permanent loss, as he can have his finger reattached surgically. Without contesting Craig's decision, Colin assigns Vince the task of performing the amputation, much to Craig's apprehension. Following several hesitations, Craig asks for painkillers before proceeding. Spotting Craig's pinky vulnerable on the table, Vince seizes the moment and swiftly cuts it off. In shock and intense pain, Craig screams and runs around, pursued by Vince and Colin, who holds a hot iron to cauterize the wound. Upon realizing that the finger isn't fully severed, they pull it off before cauterizing the wound. As Colin presents Craig with his earned money, Vince disposes of the severed finger, which is promptly choked on and causes the death of the neighbor's puppy. With reattachment now impossible, Craig and Vince exchange bitter words. Despite being called a loser by his friend, Vince accepts this label, highlighting Craig's fall from a blissful life to his current predicament. Interrupting their heated exchange, Colin invites them to partake in a meal. The dish, revealed to contain unpalatable meat, serves as their next challenge. Colin offers a prize of $50,000 to whoever finishes first. Despite their repulsion, both accept, driven by the large cash reward. When they finish simultaneously, a tiebreaker is necessitated. Violet brings in another dish and the friends compete again, with Craig emerging victorious despite immediately vomiting. In response to his victory, Vince violently assaults Craig, causing severe injuries. To alleviate the tension, Colin invites Vince outside while Violet assists the beaten Craig. Outside, Vince vents his frustration with Craig, asserting he nearly killed him in his rage. Colin challenges him to follow through on his threat, offering him $250,000 to murder Craig, arguing the money could provide a fresh start. Later that evening, Violet readies to display a slideshow. Simultaneously, Colin inquires if Craig needs anything, to which Craig requests a cab. As Colin places the call to one, a slideshow presents images of Craig and Vince from throughout the evening. Vince cautiously readies a knife and approaches Craig while packing his earnings into a bag. In a sudden moment of hesitation, Vince withdraws from the challenge, the slideshow in the background showing images of him and Craig from before their encounter at the bar. He warns Craig that they must leave the premises, but is met with 2 gunshots from Craig, thereby killing his friend for the sake of money. Craig returns to counting his winnings, the slideshow continuing to display their shared memories. After Craig leaves the premises, Colin hands Violet $100, signifying that the night's events were merely a wager for them, with Violet having bet successfully on Craig. Upon his arrival home, Craig removes the cash from his bag and picks up his crying infant, who is visibly frightened by his disheveled appearance. Turning on the light, Audrey is shocked to see her husband in such a distressed state, cradling their child, with the money spread out on the couch. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.